Monday morning. Parking lot. 7:42 a.m. He drives a 12-year-old Mazda with a cracked dashboard. She takes the bus. He packs lunch every single day. He has $900,000. You've been doing everything right. The latte, the budget app, the financial TikToks at midnight. So why does the boring thing keep winning? Because at every level of wealth, the habit looks different. The result doesn't. This is what the boring habit actually looks like. From 0 to $1 million. The Mazda is 11 years old, 134,000 miles. The driver's seat has a tear running diagonal, covered with electrical tape 2 winters ago, still holding. The AC works on settings 3 and 4. You keep it on 3 because 4 sounds like something's loose. You don't want to know what. Your coworker pulls in next to you. Brand new Hyundai Tucson. 42 months into a 60-month lease. She doesn't mention the payment. You don't ask. $400, maybe $450 with insurance on top. You grab your bag and walk in together. She asks when you're getting something newer. You say the Mazda runs fine. Both of you know that's not the whole answer. Nobody tells you the boring habit at this level isn't a philosophy. It's math. Cold, uncomfortable math. $412 a month doesn't exist in your budget. So you keep the car, not because you're disciplined, because you're out of options. But here's the thing about constraints. Sometimes a constraint and the right answer look exactly the same from the outside. The person who keeps the old car because they can't afford the new one, and the person who keeps it because they understand depreciation. Same vehicle, same gap between themselves and the payment. One knows why. The other figures it out later. You're figuring it out now. A new car payment at this salary averages around $400 a month. Insurance on a newer model adds another $160. That's $560 every month. Gone before you buy groceries. Over 4 years, $26,880. Not in equity, in something that lost 23% of its value the moment it left the lot. The Mazda costs you insurance, $210 a month, registration once a year, an occasional repair that makes your stomach drop when the mechanic calls. Last March, it was the alternator, $840. You put it on a card, paid it off in 2 months. It hurt, you did it anyway, and then you kept driving. There's a moment that happens at this level, nobody prepares you for. Red light, a Tuesday. A newer car pulls up next to you. That specific shine that only exists in the first 18 months. The driver looks straight ahead. You look at the cracked dashboard. Something moves through you that isn't quite jealousy, closer to a question. Is this just what my life looks like now? The light turns green. You drive. That question will come back. A lot. But what you don't know yet, sitting in an 11-year-old car at 26, is that the question itself is useful. It means you're paying attention. And paying attention is the beginning of everything. The car is never the point. The point is the $560 that didn't leave your account this month and the month before, and the month before that. Most of it went to rent and groceries and the alternator in March. But some stayed. Enough to make next month slightly less tight than this one. That's the compounding nobody charts, not returns. The breathing room. The fact that one bad week doesn't automatically become a bad month. The boring habit right now isn't building wealth. Just margin. Just enough space to not be completely wrecked by whatever happens next Thursday. Margin is the foundation. Everything else gets built on top. The Mazda starts every morning. Not gracefully. Takes a second. There's a sound it makes in cold weather that you've named but won't describe to a mechanic because you're afraid of what it costs. But it starts, and you drive to work. And $560 stays in your account instead of someone else's. Nobody sees that. Nobody claps. Your coworker doesn't know. The algorithm doesn't care. But the math does. The math always does. The notification comes in at 9:03 a.m. Direct deposit. $3,180. You see it for about 4 seconds before the next notification arrives. $175. Transferred. Automatically to the high-yield savings account you set up 7 months ago on a Sunday night when you couldn't sleep. You didn't decide this morning. You decided 7 months ago, and then you forgot about it. That's the whole system. Here's how it actually started. Not with a plan, Not with a spreadsheet, with a number that annoyed you. You were looking at last month's bank statement. Not because you wanted to, because something felt off. And there it was. $173 in takeout over 30 days. DoorDash mostly. One Postmates order at 11:15 p.m. on a Wednesday that you have no memory of making. $173. On food you ate alone, in front of a screen, and remembered nothing about by the following week. You didn't cancel the takeout. You just looked at that number and thought, if that money can disappear without me noticing, so can $175 going the other direction. So you set up the transfer, $175, the day after payday, automatic, before you could spend it on something you'd forget by next Wednesday. That was 7 months ago. The balance now is $8,400. You check it sometimes. Not from anxiety, just to confirm it's real. It's real. Let's be honest about what $8,400 is and isn't. It's not life-changing. It won't survive a major medical bill or a job loss longer than maybe 4 months. It is not the number you dreamed about when you thought about being financially stable. But here's what $8,400 actually is. It's the first time in your adult life that something bad could happen on a Tuesday, and you wouldn't have to put it on a card. That's it. Not returns, not compound interest, just the absence of panic. The quiet knowledge that the car repair, the ER visit, the security deposit if things go sideways, those things have an answer now. A real one, not a prayer and a credit card. That feeling has no line item in any financial plan, but anyone who's ever lived without it knows exactly what it's worth. You thought you'd feel the loss of $175 every month, that there'd be a moment, every 30 days, where you'd be short, where you'd move the money back. That moment never came. Not because you're unusually disciplined, because $175 was never load-bearing in your budget. It was just available. And available money finds somewhere to go. Before, it went to a Wednesday night Postmates order you don't remember. Now it goes to a savings account, compounding at 4.5% annually. Same amount, different destination, completely different outcome. The transfer didn't require sacrifice. It required automation. Sacrifice means choosing pain. Automation means removing the choice entirely. No choice, no willpower required. The money moves before your brain can negotiate with itself. That's the whole system. Remove the decision. The behavior follows. Something else happens at this level that nobody talks about. The bank notices, not with a phone call. Algorithmically, your account pattern shifted from irregular and low to consistent and moderate, and the system responded. The credit card offers changed, not the secured card, the one where you hand over your own money as collateral. Actual cards. Real limits, $2,000, $3,500. The same institution that had nothing for you 8 months ago is now sending envelopes with your name on them. You didn't change. The number changed, and the number is all the system sees. You are not building a relationship with the bank, you are building a profile, and profiles open doors that people don't. 7 months ago you set up a $175 transfer on a Sunday night because a DoorDash statement annoyed you. That's the origin story. Not inspiring, not cinematic, just a number on a screen that bothered you enough to do one small thing about it. Now there's $8,400 sitting in an account earning 4.5%. Next month, $8,575 before interest. The month after, a little more. The machine is small right now, almost invisible, but it's running, and running is the only thing that matters at level 2, not the amount, not the return, just that the transfer happened again this month, and will happen next month, without you making a single decision. You already made the decision, 7 months ago, on a Sunday night when you couldn't sleep. The raise is $7,000 a year. After taxes, that's $438 a month. You stare at that number for a while. $438. More than your grocery bill, more than your car insurance twice over. For about 3 days, you think about the apartment. The 1-2 neighborhoods over, newer building, in-unit washer and dryer, a kitchen with actual counter space, $1,420 a month. Your current rent is $980. The gap is $440. Almost exactly what the raise is worth after taxes. You close the tab. $438 a month into a brokerage account. Total market index fund. Expense ratio 0.04%. Automatic. Day after payday. Same system as the 175, just bigger now, aimed at something longer. End of year 1, $5,256 in. The market added a little. Account sits at $5,610. Not dramatic, but it's the first investment account you've ever had that feels like it has direction. Not savings sitting still, money actually going somewhere. Now here's the part nobody warns you about. The social pressure at this level is quieter than a bill, but more expensive if you let it win. You make $72,000, you live like someone making $55, and the people around you, friends, coworkers, family, nobody says anything directly. It's subtler than that. It's the pause when you describe your apartment. The part where someone says, "Oh, that neighborhood," and their voice does something small. It's the group chat about the Memorial Day beach house. $400 per person, and everyone assuming you're in before you've said a word. It's your cousin at Thanksgiving asking if you're still in that same place. Not mean, just asking, but still lands like a small judgment. You feel it. Some months you sit with the discomfort longer than you'd like. Lifestyle inflation isn't about weakness. It's about visibility. The new apartment is visible. Friends come over and see it. Family hears about it and understands it. It communicates something, that you're doing well, that the raise meant something. The brokerage account is invisible. Nobody sees it at dinner. Nobody asks about it at Thanksgiving. It doesn't photograph well. So the pressure to upgrade isn't really about the apartment. It's about the need to show progress in a language other people can read. And that need is deeply human. Nothing wrong with feeling it. But here's what you learn at level 3 slowly, over several months sitting in the same apartment with the same view of the same parking lot. Visible progress and real progress are not always the same thing. The $438 a month you chose not to spend on something people could see. That gap is where the actual building happens. One Saturday in October, you buy a rug. $55 from Home Goods. Dark green rectangle. Fits under the coffee table with about 6 inches to spare. You put it down, step back, look at the room. Something shifts, not dramatically. The room just feels more like a place someone chose to live in, and less like a place someone ended up. You sit on the couch for a while and look at it, and you realize you didn't need a new apartment. You needed to feel like you'd done something intentional with the one you have. The rug cost $55. The feeling it gave you is the same feeling you were chasing with the $1,400 apartment 2 neighborhoods over. Most upgrades are not about the thing. They're about the feeling the thing is supposed to deliver. Once you can separate the feeling from the object, you stop being so easy to sell to. The system depends on you not knowing that. The boring habit at level 3 is the hardest one so far. Not because it requires the most discipline, because it requires you to be comfortable being misread, to let people draw the wrong conclusions, to sit at Thanksgiving and say yes, still in the same place, and not feel the need to explain the brokerage account sitting behind that answer. That silence is where the money lives. And every month the $438 goes in, and the apartment stays the same. You're not just building a number. You're building the ability to let the boring thing win even when the exciting thing is right there. Visible, available, socially approved. That ability compounds too. The account crossed $100,000 on a Thursday. You know this because you checked on Sunday, like you always do, and the number was $97,420. The following Sunday, it was $102,080. You don't know exactly which day it crossed, you weren't watching. That's the point. Your coworker Jerome checks Robinhood 10 times a day. He sends screenshots to the group chat, a position up 18%, a tech stock that doubled in 6 weeks. Green numbers on a white background. You look at the screenshots. You don't feel much, not because you don't care about money, because you've learned something Jerome hasn't yet. Screenshots are a highlight reel. Nobody sends the screenshot when they're down 22% on a Tuesday afternoon. The 10 times a day Jerome checks, 9 of those times, the number does nothing useful for him. just creates an opportunity to react, and reacting is expensive. The market drops 8% over 11 days in March. Your portfolio loses $9,300 on paper. You know this because you checked on Sunday. The number was there, clear. Uncomfortable. You close the app. Monday, you go to work. You eat the lunch you packed. You drive home in the Mazda. You sleep. Tuesday is the same. Wednesday is the same. You don't sell. Not because you're fearless, because you know one thing clearly. The investors who sold in March of 2020 locked in their losses. The investors who did nothing watched the market recover to new highs within 12 months. Doing nothing felt like losing. Doing nothing was winning. Not checking daily isn't about confidence. It's about architecture. You built the system so it doesn't require your attention to function. Contributions automatic. Allocation set. Rebalancing once a quarter. One Sunday afternoon, 40 minutes, a calculator. Everything else is time doing its work. When you remove daily attention, you also remove the daily opportunity to interfere. And interference, well-intentioned, emotionally reasonable interference, is what quietly destroys most retail investors over a decade. You didn't rely on willpower. You made willpower unnecessary. Jerome sends another screenshot on Friday afternoon. Position up 31%. 3 weeks in, 2 fire emojis. You like the message. You mean it. What you don't say, your index fund returned 11.2% last year, without a single decision after January, without one screenshot. 11.2% of $102,000 is $11,424. Earned while you were sleeping. Jerome's 31% might be more exciting. Your 11.2 is probably more money. You don't send a screenshot, there's nothing to take a picture of. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. The French press is 8 years old. Scratched handle, a hairline crack on the base that doesn't leak, but you've been watching for 2 years. $28 new, back when $28 was a number you thought about before spending. You don't think about $28 anymore, but you still use the same French press. Every morning, same beans. $14 a pound from the grocery store 2 blocks over. Roughly 40 cents a cup. 2 cups, 80 cents. 4 minutes, including the wait. This is not a story about 80 cents. Tuesday morning. Break room. Patrick is getting his coat. He's heading to the coffee place downstairs. Reclaimed wood interior. Pour-overs that take 7 minutes and cost $8.50. He goes every day, sometimes twice. He sees you with the thermos you filled at home. He doesn't say anything mean, just tilts his head slightly. The way people do when something doesn't quite compute. You make $155, he knows that. Same band, same floor, same title on the org chart, and you're carrying a $15 thermos. You smile, you keep walking. Patrick doesn't know what you know. He doesn't know that at a net worth of $420,000, your portfolio earned $29,400 last year without you doing anything. He doesn't know that $6 a day is not a threat at this level. He sees the thermos. He reads it as a statement about what you can afford. He's wrong about what it means. And you don't need him to be right. Here's what nobody explains about money at this level. The habits that built the number don't feel optional anymore. Not because you're rigid, because you understand something you couldn't have at level 1. The French press isn't about the money. It's about the identity. You built $420,000 on a salary that started at $34,000. 100 small decisions, consistently, quietly, without an audience, over the better part of a decade. The French press is one of those decisions, not the most important one. Not even close. But it's part of the same operating logic. And you don't mess with operating logic that's working. Most people assume that when the money gets bigger, the habits relax. That discipline was always temporary, something you maintained until you didn't have to anymore. And then you'd finally let yourself live. That's not what happens, not if the habits were real. What actually happens is that the habits become effortless. You don't make your own coffee because you're resisting the urge to spend $80.50. You make it because it doesn't occur to you not to. The decision left the conversation years ago. What's left is just a morning. 4 minutes. The quiet before the day begins. That's what 8 years of the same small choice looks like from the inside. Not heroic, not impressive, just settled. The portfolio earned $29,400 last year. You made 80 cents worth of coffee this morning. Both of those things are true at the same time. And the second one is why the first one keeps growing. Level 6. Net worth, $750,000 to $2,000. The boring habit. You don't talk about money. It's a birthday party for someone you've known since college. Apartment in a nice part of the city. Good wine. The kind of gathering where everyone is doing well enough that nobody mentions money directly, but money is somehow in every conversation anyway. Someone is talking about crypto. Not the technical part, the story part, a position they got into 8 months ago. How is it up? How they almost sold too early? How they didn't? The room listens with that specific attention people give to stories about winning. Someone else mentions their equity package, the vesting schedule, what it could be worth if the Series B closes at the right valuation. Casual, confident, the way people talk about things they've been thinking about alone and finally get to say out loud. You listen, you drink your wine. You don't add anything. Not because you have nothing to say. Your net worth crossed $1 million 14 months ago. Not from a windfall, not from equity. From the Mazda and the 175 transfer and the apartment you didn't upgrade and the portfolio you didn't check every day and the French press you've been using for 9 years. From the boring thing. Repeated. For a long time. The number is real. 4 accounts. A paid-down mortgage. A brokerage balance that earned $61,000 last year without a single active decision. $61,000. More than you made in your entire first 2 years of working. You don't say any of this. You ask the person talking about crypto what made them choose that position. You listen to the answer. You mean the question genuinely. The silence isn't humility. Humility is a feeling. This is a system. At this level, talking about money creates problems that silence doesn't. Not dramatic ones. Subtle. The friend who starts treating interactions like transactions. The family member who calls more often with a specific kind of question. The acquaintance who has an opportunity, always a very good one, always with some urgency, that they'd love to walk you through when you have a minute. The moment the number becomes known, the relationship changes. Not always. Not with everyone. But enough. Often enough that the silence stopped being a choice and became a preference. And then a habit. There's something else happening at this level that's harder to name. The language of the room is breaking down. The conversations about raises and rent and whether to lease or buy and what the market is going to do, these were your conversations for most of your adult life. You lived inside them. You had stakes. Now you sit at the edge of them. Not above. Not better. Just outside. The way you might feel at a party where everyone is talking about a show you stopped watching 3 seasons ago. You understand the references. You remember caring. But the urgency isn't there anymore. Nobody warns you about that distance. It's not loneliness exactly. More like standing in a room where the acoustics have changed. Same people, same voices, different echo. Someone asks what you've been doing with your investments lately. Casual, friendly. No agenda. You say you've been keeping it pretty simple. Index funds mostly. Nothing exciting. They nod. The conversation moves on. Nothing exciting. That's the truest thing you've said all night. Silence at this level isn't passivity. It's protection. Not just of the number, but of the relationships around it. Of the version of yourself that existed before the number. Of the ordinary Tuesday morning texture of a life that doesn't need to perform its own success to feel real. The people who talk most about money at this level are usually the people most recently arrived here. The number is still loud for them, still needs to be confirmed by saying it out loud, by watching someone else's eyes register it. That phase passes. What replaces it isn't arrogance. Just a settled confidence that doesn't require a witness. The number doesn't need to be spoken to be real. And knowing that, really knowing it, not just intellectually, but in the way you know things that have been true for a long time, that's its own kind of freedom. You leave the party at 10:30. Drive home in the Mazda, 172,000 miles now. The electrical tape on the seat is starting to peel at one corner. You press it back down at a red light. You get home, make a cup of tea, sit for a while. Tomorrow morning, the French press. Same beans, same 4 minutes. The brokerage account earning while you sleep. Not because you're doing anything, but because you did something. Years ago, repeatedly, without an audience. You don't think about the party. You don't think about the crypto story or the Series B or the equity package. You think about nothing in particular. And the machine runs quietly in the background, the way it always has, the way it will tomorrow, and the day after that. Monday morning. Parking lot, 7:42 a.m. A 2013 Kia Forte, 98,000 miles. The driver's side mirror has a hairline crack running through the bottom corner. The driver doesn't notice anymore. He's 25. First real job, $52,000 a year. Sitting in the car before his shift starts, scrolling through a job listing on his phone. Entry level. 2 to 3 years experience preferred. He doesn't know yet that the listing isn't the thing that will determine the next 10 years. He doesn't know about the transfer he hasn't set up. The apartment he won't upgrade. The portfolio he won't check every day. The coffee he'll keep making at home. The party where he'll say nothing exciting and mean every word of it. He locks the car and walks in. Nobody remembers the transfer. Nobody remembers the rug. Nobody remembers the French press. The portfolio remembers every one of them. The machine is open. It always was.